All right, let's take a look at the second section in chapter 10. What we're going to do here is we're going to look at two different models that explain relational dynamics. And so what we're going to look at first is the stages of relational development, and then we're going to look at dialectical tensions. Okay, so the first model is called Stages of Relational Development, and this is based primarily on the work of Mark Knapp, who looked at relationships, friendships, romantic relationships. I think this can also apply to work relationships. Okay, and what Knapp said was he saw how relationships came together and came apart. And other researchers, social scientists said, you know what, that's too simplistic. So it's not just coming together, blue, or coming apart, the yellow. There's also relational maintenance. Okay, so important. This is Mark Knapp's work and the work of others. I think this is fairly easy to understand, but I will still go through all of the steps just to make sure. Okay. Initiating, and people always kind of mess up initiating and experimenting. Initiating is the very first stage. It is very short. It tends to be superficial, right? You let someone know that you are interested in making contact. You say hello, right? The old pickup line in a bar, do you come here often? Okay, that's initiating. And basically what you are doing is letting the other person know that you are someone that they should feel is worth talking to. This applies to all relationships, not just romantic relationships, not just friendships. Okay, this applies to, you name the relationship, this applies. Okay, and I forgot to say, when we go through this, I would like you to think about a relationship that you were in where you went through these stages. So basically, I'm going to ask you to think about a relationship that you don't have anymore, that for some reason it is over, and we're going to see how well it fits all of these stages. Obviously, this initiating stage can be very difficult if you are shy. I was horribly shy as an adolescent and a young adult, and I never knew how to initiate. How do you go up to someone you don't know and say hello? Okay. Experimenting is small talk, where you're in class, you're sitting next to someone and you say, what's your major? I don't know, where do you live? And I realize that people tend not to have these conversations as much in the classroom now as they used to, because everyone has a phone. So in some ways, the phone has taken the part of getting to know someone. Okay. This is a very safe way to ease into a relationship because it's just small talk. You're not sharing anything too personal. What are you doing with small talk? You're searching for common ground. So you're sitting next to someone, you think they look interesting, you start asking them questions, and then you realize, wow, this person is nothing like me, and there's no complementarity that's happening. The things that you're learning about them make you think that you don't like them. You haven't invested much in this relationship, so you haven't really lost anything here. And obviously, social media is a great way to experiment. And how do you do that? You look at the kinds of things the person posts and says, wow, does this person have the same outlook on life that I do? Do they like the same things? Do they have the same sense of humor? Okay. So let's say, you've gone through the initiating, you said hi, you've done some small talk, and you say, wow, this is a person I would like to form a relationship with. Get into the stage of intensifying, where the personal relationship starts to develop. And this intensifying stage is the one that tends to be shown in movies, right? Because it's very exciting. It's, we feel great. Our friendships are getting stronger. We're falling in love with someone. the issue is, this is a stage of how a relationship develops, and we don't stay at this stage forever. And the problem is when this stage ends, a lot of people say, oh, well, that's it. The romance is gone. The friend is not such a great friend. They don't think about the fact that, of course, the relationship's going to change. It's time to move on to a new stage where it's not as intense. Okay. The next stage is integrating, where the two of you start to do things together. Your social circles merge. You and someone and a coworker are starting to eat lunch together, and you spend time with their friends and they spend time with your friends, or you and your romantic partner, your family knows that when they invite you for Thanksgiving, they invite the other person too, because you are a unit, right? The two of you begin to develop routines and rituals. You and your friend, I always use the same example. I got to come up with a new one. You go bowling on Thursday nights. I haven't bowled in years. Okay. Your sense of obligation to the other person, or to your, meaning plural, you and the other person, your sense of obligation to each other grows. You maybe want to do something and you say, well, I shouldn't do it because the other person, if I know that Jamie doesn't like seafood, and if I say to everyone, let's go out for seafood, she's going to feel left out, or he's going to feel left out. Okay. We make requests of the other person. Please come to the garden show with me. And your expectation is that the other person will do that, because you know that you will do that for that other person. Do people still officialize things on social media? It used to be Facebook official. I have no idea if that still exists. Is there such a thing in Twitter and Snapchat and Instagram? Okay. Bonding is a symbolic public gesture to show that the world, that the relationship exists. Okay. It could be you are engaged or married. It could be that the two of you move in together. There could be some kind of a written or verbal pledge. You sign a contract with, where you're working, or they talk about two people working on, two scholars working on a paper together. I like to think about, I know when my daughter was in middle school, she and her best friend got that necklace that breaks into two, that was a heart, and it's BFF, and I have no idea where exactly it breaks. I mean, that was the sign that they, they were a thing. Okay. This is an important turning point in the relationship. All right. This is at the very top. Mark Knapp would say, at this point, the relationship has come together. It can't be any more together. I don't know if he thinks it's all downhill from there, but I always think that, even though I don't think that is true. Remember, for other social scientists, integrating and bonding are part of this relational maintenance stage. So you and this other person have bonded. Let me do it in terms of, I'm going to say that the people have gotten married, because that seems to be the easiest for me, okay, to think about. Even in a very strong marriage, people don't always do everything together, right? People start to say, okay, this is my thing and this is your thing. So we move from, we move from us to I, and that's okay, right? I used to watch boxing with my husband. I hate boxing, but he liked it. And I thought it was important for us to do everything together. And at a certain point I said, well, this is ridiculous. He can watch boxing and I can go to Joann Fabrics and spend a lot of money on craft supplies, and that doesn't mean our marriage is over. Okay? Because what are we doing? We're creating space within this unit for individuality individuality. And we will talk more about this when we get to the dialectical tensions. Okay. Sometimes what happens is the people start to circumscribe, where they draw a circle, more or less, around this is mine and this is yours. So it's like it's this differentiating to the extreme. Okay. We do this, right? There are certain things like, I don't know, my husband wants to get together with his friends from Niger, and that's his thing. And that's okay, because if I'm hanging out with them and they're speaking Hausa or Zarma, I have no idea what they're talking about. And, they're laughing at inside jokes that I don't know. So even if I were with him, I would still be on the outside. So circumscribing can be really good. It's a problem when the two people in this relationship have more things that they don't do together than that they actually do together. So there's more separation than integration. All right. But you really know you're in trouble when when a relationship is stagnating, where it's the same old. Okay. Oh, hey, it's Wednesday. So if it's at Wednesday, we know we're going to sit down and watch, I don't even know shows that are on. We're going to watch this show on TV because we didn't record it or something like that. Okay. And basically what happens is, whether it's, the marriage, or it's a friendship, or, it's that kind of the work friendship, nothing's new, nothing's joyful. Okay. So this feels pretty crappy. Okay. Sometimes what happens is people start to avoid each other. And here are 4 different ways that two people can avoid each other. By somehow expressing your detachment, where you avoid the other person altogether, or you zone out. So when my younger sister's marriage was falling apart, my brother-in-law, ex now, left for work early. And so he would be gone by 6:00. So my sister would stay in bed faking she was asleep until she heard the door shut. And then she would get up and do what she needed. And she would purposely stay at work late enough so that when she came home, she knew her husband would be asleep watching TV. All right. So that was a clear case of avoiding. Okay. You can avoid involvement, where you're actually physically with the person, but you ignore them, or you don't touch them, or when you're talking to them, please pass the salt. That's as polite as it gets. Okay. You can even go further than that and show your antagonism, where you are hostile to that person. Oh, well, if it's not too much trouble, could you please pass the salt? Kind of a thing. You could also mentally dissociate from where you think about the other person as unable, as not capable of, not important in your life. So avoiding doesn't have to be that case where I talked about with my sister, where she actually was trying to be physically distant from the other person. You can be actually with that other person, but you are... Remember as a kid, did you ever try to, you pretended you couldn't hear someone and you ignored them, you're ghosting them online? Okay. And then if nothing happens to change this, the relationship terminates. So you might say, it's not you, it's me, classic breakup line, or, I think we should stop seeing each other. We all know of or we've been in this situation where the relationship fizzled and we never had any kind of a closure. There was no, I don't want to be friends with you anymore kind of a thing. So in that case, I think it's a little more drawn out, because you don't know if the relationship has ended or not. I had I've known of people who break up over social media. In fact, in the days before social media, I remember one student talking about he had broken up with his girlfriend by leaving her a voicemail. So nobody wants a relationship to end, but ideally we have learned something from a relationship that has terminated. All right. A relationship does not have to go through all of these stages. I mean, in some ways, all relationships ultimately terminate because we die. But you might be friends with someone that you became best friends with them in first grade, and you're still friends, and you don't foresee the relationship terminating. I've also, sometimes a couple is going through a really rough time, and they realize that the circumscribing has gotten too big, and so they'll go to therapy. They'll go to couples therapy. Or maybe you realize that you and your friend are always doing the same old, and so you have a conversation and you say, can we do something different? So you might move back to the intensifying stage. Okay. So anyways, this is one theory, a model of relational development. The next one, in some ways, I think is it's harder to understand, but I like it more because this can happen at any point in a relationship. In the early days, it can happen in the when the relationship's going on for a year or two. It can happen when a relationship's been going on for, I don't know, decades. Okay, and it's called dialectical tension. And what happens is a conflict occurs because there are two opposing forces that are existing at the same time. Okay, and these two opposing forces, they're incompatible. They cannot exist together. So here's there are three of them. There's a great chart in the book on page 285 that I think explains it, that shows it really well. So a relationship can happen between the two people in the relationship, and that's called an internal dialectic. It can also happen between the people in the relationship and the outside world, and that would be an external dialectic. Students have frequently asked me, can this happen within an individual? Well, yes, of course it can, but then it doesn't play into the necessarily to the relationship. Okay. And why? Well, because we're really thinking about how we communicate about this. Okay. So the first one is, how much are we integrated with the other person or separate from the other person? And we've got the connection, if it's internal, between the two people in the relationship, we've got the connection autonomy, which is how much do we want to be connected and how much do we want to be on our own? And, I'm thinking about this especially with adolescence, right? Where I'm saying when my kids were teens, I wanted them to spend time. I wanted to be connected, but at that point, they really wanted to pull away a little bit. They wanted more autonomy. Okay. Then we've got the inclusion seclusion, which is we are a newly married couple, and we just want to be away from everyone. That's why people have honeymoons, and the family wants us. They keep wanting to invite us to things. They want to include us, and we want to seclude ourselves. Okay. I because I know this is challenging, we'll definitely spend some time talking about this in the classroom. Okay. The next one is the stability change. How much do we want things to stay the same? How much do we want things to be different? If it's within the two people in the relationship, it's predictability, novelty. Do we do the same thing all the time, or are we random and we always do different things? If it's between the couple and the outside world, it's conventionality. How much do we follow the rules that society has set? And uniqueness, how much do we do our own thing? And the last one is the expression privacy. When it's an internal, it's openness and closedness, which is how much do we tell each other? How much do we express and how much do we keep private? So are we open or are we closed? And then if it's between the couple and the outside world, this external dialectic, it's revelation, concealment. Do we share with the outside world the crazy things that we do, or not so crazy, or do we keep it private? Okay, so the textbook does a good job explaining these. So read it over again if it's not clear, and then make sure you bring your questions to class. Okay, so what do you do how do people manage these dialectical tensions? And then I have okay, all right. I'm looking at 8 of them. The first 3, I don't want to say bad. The first 3 are not very effective. A lot of people do this. We deny. Problem? There's no problem. Tension? There's no dialectical tension. Everything's fine. Let's do the separation. Why did I just go blank on it? The connection autonomy. Okay. We'll do everything together. I hate monster trucks, but I'll go. I hate boxing, but I'll watch because it's so important. We can have disorientation where we are just overwhelmed and by what's going on, and either we freeze or we leave. I thought marriage meant doing everything together. He doesn't want to come to yoga class with me. That's it. Marriage is over. Okay, obviously that's an extreme reaction, but I'm sure people feel this. So alternation is choosing one end at one time and another end at another time. So this week we'll spend the whole weekend together. Next week we'll do our own things. And then the week after that we'll spend it together. And the next weekend we'll go do our own things. Okay. Segmentation is where we divide our life into compartments. Okay. We will go grocery shopping together and we'll work on house stuff together. But because we have such opposite tastes in movies, we'll go to movies with friends, not with each other. Okay. These next 4 are a little more effective. Except balance, I think balance is as being a good word, but the textbook argues, and I get it, that we're going to compromise. And compromise is not always a good thing. And we will talk about this in chapter 12 when we talk about conflicts. Okay. So, I want to spend the weekend together, and he wants to hang out with his friends. So we'll both hang out with his friends. And I will hate it because they are smoking cigars and playing poker. And he will hate it because he can't tell the stories that he usually tells because I'm there, or he has to constantly be checking to see if I'm okay. So that's how balance can be not so great. The last 3 are definitely more effective, but because they're more effective, they're also more challenging. So in integration, we have to say, you know what? There are opposing forces and we can't diminish them. This is probably the one I would do. We'll drive to the movies together. I will see a movie that I want to see, a romantic comedy with my friends. He will see a war movie with his friends. And then afterwards, we'll all go out to dinner. Okay. Recalibration is a reframing of the issue. We're changing our way of thinking so that we're not seeing the contradiction. Where I say, it's not an all or nothing. It's not that we're together all the time or apart all the time, but when we spend time apart so that the time we spend together just feels more special or specialer. Okay. Then the last one is reaffirmation. which is that we accept that the tensions are going to exist, and we should actually embrace these challenges. Where we say, in any relationship, there are highs and lows, and we need to see them as part of life. Honestly, to me, the recalibration, or as the textbook calls it, reframing it and reaffirmation, they seem to be pretty much the same thing. Okay, so, alrighty, I know there was a lot in this section. So, can you describe the stages of relational development, that staircase, and also can you apply them to a relationship that you have or that you had? Ideally, it's one that no longer exists, so you can see all the way through to the termination phase. Can you tell me what the different dialectical tensions are, and tell me how people can manage dialectical tensions, and maybe which one is you are most comfortable with, the one that you do most often? Yeah, I knew this one was long.